Oh, ladies. Well, I'm not very good at talking on these. I just brought this lot along, really. Steve asked me to come and do a demonstration and show you.
Pity you couldn't get tonight.
Yeah, pity you couldn't get. Yeah, he hasn't been very well, the old guy, has he? But no, somebody asked me if I could do a demonstration on the lightwave stuff that we've been playing around with. All started for me about 2 years ago. I went to Finningley Club. They had a microwave meeting there, microwave round table. And one of the things they were doing, it's 2 years ago, yeah, 2 years ago. And one thing they were doing is, so we're making these boards up. If I take this out of here, they like to keep active there, and there was just building a little printed circuit board inside there. Well, actually, I can't get it out, it's a screw on it. But there's if you look inside there, there's a little PCB, it's a surface mount one, and there's two which look like leads on the end. You can take it a classic round later. And they were just making these up as a soldering exercise. It was a kit produced by Finningley, and it's really a soldering exercise that they were playing around with. They also made this tube. I say made it, it's a bit of Wix's waste pipe. And in the front of it is one of these, a 4-inch magnifying glass, right? So all the whole idea of this, yeah, is the focal length of this magnifying glass is about here. So the tube goes into about there, and this focuses it on a wall, distant wall. And there's a 1/2 watt red transmitting lead in there. It's all very simple, very basic and very cheap.
And it was all made out of spare bits and pieces.
All made out of spare bits and pieces.
There was no bits apart from the LEDs that were ordered.
Yeah.
All the rest come from surplus equipment that I didn't plug.
It cost about 20 quid to get to that stage. So that's including the price of the drain pipe and the magnifying glass. So for 20 quid you've got a transceiver. Can I just put it on the show?
It cost you more for a tripod.
Yeah, the tripod was given to me years ago, and it was in my garage. And it hasn't got a proper screw thread on, so things are taped to it. There's lots of tape around here. There's a battery taped on the bottom of it. And I slide that into the wheel, I put a little black mark. It'll focus it basically on the wall over there. My power supply is taped to the bottom of there, 12-volt battery. Put that in, press transmit, and it puts a red light on the wall. If I play with the focus, you'll see that you can actually focus. There is the dye of the lead. You can see the square in the centre. Yeah. That's the dye of the 1/2 watt lead. Of course, that's focused on that wall. When I'm using it in real life, you have to shove it forward because you focus a longer way away. With this is basically an AM transmitter. They call it baseband, but it's AM. You plug a microphone in, one of these that costs you 99 pence off Fleabay, yeah. You plug that in there, and you can actually just talk on the microphone and it's transmitting. You can't see it flashing, but it does, believe me, it varies in amplitude a bit. You can hardly tell, but it does. That's an AM transmission. Actually, put the right one in, it might flicker a bit more. Try that again, hang on. It does vary a bit, you see. So that's a basic AM transmission on red light. Now, the reason they use red light is because it's got the longest distance for transmitting on light waves without going into the infrared region. Being red, it's easy, you can see it. It's obvious when you point it in the right direction, and these things aren't dead easy to get lined up from one end to the other. So with this, on red light, I've managed to work 50 miles per hour. Right? So you can work 50 miles on 1/2 watt of red light. And I see a lot of people say, well, why don't you use lasers and things, laser pens and things like that? Well, I don't know if you've tried it, but if you put a laser pen on and you shine it down there, 50 miles away, you'll be very lucky to see it, because of a thing called scintillation through the atmosphere. Light bends and reflects and things around the atmosphere, and if you've got a really narrow beam of light, it moves about. If you look at Belmont lights at night, you'll see them twinkling. The reason they're twinkling is scintillation. They're not going on and off. It's just the atmosphere causing the light to bend about around you. So with a red light and what we call a collimated lens, so it's a column of light, you've got a wider beam width to look at. So it's a lot easier to line up at both ends, and you stand a lot better chance of getting a successful contact. Having said that, oh, that was bright.
Yeah.
I'll get my own back in a second. Yeah, just get my own back. Come on, there we go. What was I saying? Yeah, at night, using 2 of these, 50 miles is quite easy. Well, not easy, but it's reasonable to work. It has to be a clear night, and it has to be dark. Going on from this, I went in 2 different ways. One, to get a higher power and better lenses. I spent a lot more money because these Fresnel lenses, these Fresnel screens, are 99p each. You can spend up to £2 for a really good one. The thing about the Fresnel lenses, really they were invented for lighthouses.
Yeah.
If you look at a lighthouse with a candle behind it and a Fresnel lens, you can see miles away, can't you? And the reason is it's a really good lens. Don't know how many people are into photography, cameras and things, but your lens, the quality of it is measured by the F number. And if you look at that, the focal length of this is about that distance, right? And the actual diameter of it is that. And the F number is related to the diameter and the focal length. That's a lot less than 1, it's about half, F1 if you like. Sorry, F1.2, F1.3 that. So it's not particularly good. Getting it the wrong way around then. This, its focal length is about that distance, which is its width. So it's got a focal length of approximately 1. Right, so it's got an F number of 1, which is a lot better than that. It collects a lot more light. It's a better antenna. That's a little small antenna, which will focus your light down to a point here. But this is a bigger antenna, so it focuses your light onto here and here. This is a transceiver I built. It's really complicated and it's falling to bits because it's been up a mountain at the weekend. I have to be a bit careful with this, but once I get it...
It's twice the price, you see, you've got 2.
Yeah, it is. It's a very expensive piece of kit, this.
I've not been sold through that.
Conrad, who is a member of 2E0EJ, 2E0EJ, something or other. EJM, yeah. And he's a member of your club, he used to be. Took his licence here. He was the guy who walked up the mountain. Me and Jason, well, Jason drove to Llandudno.
Big pair of specs.
Yeah. It's a very big pair of specs, this. I'll turn that one off a minute. And I'll put my higher powered one on. This is a very high powered LED. This one takes about 6 amps at 3 volts, 18 watts, not bad for a LED. They were designed for projectors, because projectors used for colour use a red, green and blue LED. The red, useful for us. So clip this onto the really expensive sliding mount, which are actually a bit of old plastic trunking, and then you can slide it back and forwards to get the focal length, which I've marked with a bit of black. So that's at the focal point of this for long distances. It's somewhere near infinity. Complication is a couple of banana plugs, and this is a very intense red line. If you look at that,
Yeah.
it's focused. I don't think I can focus it actually on the wall. There you go. No, it goes through focus somewhere around about there. But yeah, this is an extremely, and this piece of kit, it's made really complicated because I built a microphone into the transmit box. My transmit box is on the back here. There's a little microphone in there, so if I you see it flicker a little bit. Again, it's an AM signal.
Down the mall.
Hopefully, if I put the receive on this one, I've got a little audio amplifier. These are He's nearly £2 off eBay. We like
tight, John.
Yeah, at Grimsby Club we tend to be a bit tight, to say the least. So if I...
Not as tight as us.
And we're not as tight as Giffle.
So,
I can sell lessons.
feedback. You see, if I'm talking here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So without even lining things up, in fact I've got that much gain. It's a bit. There's no volume control on this, I don't think, is there? No, it's a bit.
It's either on or off.
It's on or off, and that's on. So as you can see, this is now receiving the signal from this one. G0ATW, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
And it's out of phase at the moment, isn't it, John?
Out of phase?
Yeah, didn't you? Turn it 360.
Oh yeah. I'll demonstrate that in a bit. Because they've done a crafty thing for going between transmit and receive.
Yeah.
Well, if you get enough light in it, it'll matter.
Yeah.
All you've got to do is get a sniffer signal.
Mm.
Sniffer signal. Really complicated, this light stuff. So yeah, that's my really high powered LED through its Fresnel lens. Right, and this, hopefully, should have enough power to do the longest line of sight path in the UK. Now, this is where it gets a bit theoretical. Calculating line of sight paths is quite interesting. You can spend hours on a computer because there's computer simulations. I've got some here that I did before I came out from Aesthorpe. That's handy, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you look on this, there's two things that Google provide that are quite good. One's called Hey What's That Path Profiler, right? What's that path?
Oh, yeah.
And the other one is Hey What's That, right? So what's that path? You put in 2 locations, and it'll tell you if there's a line of sight between them. And Hey What's That? That will give you a panoramic view from a location. So from Aesthorpe, that's a panoramic view from Aesthorpe. And from here, you can't see anything to the east. Absolutely nothing.
Surprising.
I've never seen anything so flat in my life. But to the west, according to this, you can see some hills just south of Sheffield on a clear day. Right?
Viewpoint's even better.
Hmm?
The viewpoint's even better.
Viewpoint's even better, yeah. Well, this was done from the centre of the village. And you can spend quite a lot of time if you fancy playing around. I'll pass them round. Someone can have one of them. That's the profiler. I haven't done many, but... And this one is the...
Hey, I'm borrowing my glasses.
This one's a path test bed. Right. This is the one we tend to use for making sure that places
Yeah.
It's even better.
One of the things that you can include on this one is a number for the refraction, so the K factor, the amount that light bends in the atmosphere. Now, it's somewhere around between 0.17 and 0.14, the K factor for light that they're using to this program. And depending, certain days, you'll get better propagation than you will other days. It's just like every other form of electromagnetic waves. You go out and stand on a hillside, some days you'll see ships in the Humber because they'll be up here. Other days you won't see them. And it's to do with the refractive index. So,
And it's always down with gravity, is it?
No, the bend just changes with the atmospheric conditions, just like tropospheric.
Yeah, but it don't get left, right, east, west.
No, it goes up and down.
It always goes with the curve.
It does. It doesn't curve off to one side. No.
Right.
As far as I know, it doesn't. I've never really found that out. But as far as I know, it just curves with the atmosphere.
If you look at it, a boat, when it's on the water, you can maybe see the mirror image above it.
Yeah. If you can see it, when you're on this stuff, you can work it. Now, I'll pass them round next, because they're the path profile things. And on that path profiler, it did actually say that we could work approximately 92 miles between Llandudno and the Great Orme at Llandudno and the High Street in the Lakes. Right, the current record is about 80 mile, and it's from Sheffield to the North York Moors. So last weekend, yeah, no, someone else did the North York Moors, someone from Doncaster Club. Yeah, and it's got the record for the longest red light contact up to now. Right. Well, we thought we was going to beat it because last Sunday we decided we'd have a go, and the weather looked nice, everything looked clear. So one Conrad, 2E0CJN, who got his licence in this club, started to climb the mountains in the Lake District. Took him 3 hours to climb to the top, the High Street. It took us 3.5 hours to drive from my house in Laceby to Llandudno, with Jason driving, thank you, Jay. And we got there 3.5 hours later, and it was cold. It was freezing, the wind was blowing, and we were cold in Llandudno. The guys on top of the High Street in the Lake District said that they could hardly move. They were struggling to put anything together like this, because the hands were frozen solid. There was a wind chill, I reckon it was about -15 up there. This was last Sunday. Well, it's summer. Anyway, they did manage to communicate on the radio to us after a while. He managed to get a beam up on top of the High Street, and we struggled. We hadn't got any phone connections. We were sending the odd text message that was getting through. But we was trying to get through on 2 metres, and we were struggling our end, and we were struggling their end, but then they got into Llandudno repeater, which is on VHF, and it's on top of the Great Orme that we're next to. So then we got comms, and then we could hear them crying, because they were saying, we can't stand it any longer, we'd only just got set up. They were sat there, it sounded pathetic. They really did sound in a bad way. But we made them get the gear out as we started. But by the time we got set up behind a wall in the shade, so there was no wind and it was fairly warm, by the time we got our gear set up, and they were set up on the hillside in the Lake District, freezing to death and really sounding sorry for themselves, a sea mist had come in. The sun had gone down. You do need to do this in the dark. The sun had gone down. Great, but it wasn't really dark because there was a full moon, it was quite bright, and it never did get dark that night. The only thing that happened was the sea mist came in and blocked all line of sight between Wales and the lakes. So that was the end of it. So we packed up, went to the chip shop, had a bag of chips and drove home. Another 3.5 hours. So we got in, we spent 8 hours driving there, setting the gear up and driving back, and we had a bag of chips. The worst bit was...
Expensive bag of chips.
Yeah.
Very nice though.
Yeah, very nice.
Hot.
But believe it or not, it was the Hong Kong chip shop in London. It makes you laugh. We did see a fire, that was interesting. There was a hotel in Llandudno on fire, and the fire brigade was there and they diverted us. So it was an entertaining trip, but we didn't do any good. We didn't break any records. I was loving to come here tonight and say we're the new record holders, but we're not, because we failed. But it was a good try. The guys on the mountain absolutely froze. By the time they got back down again, because it didn't quite take them so long to come down, they came down a bit quicker than they went up. It was about 2.5 hours coming down. But Conrad still reckons he's ill to this day. He's not very well. It wasn't good to put them through it. It's not an easy record to break. Not easy at all. And you can spend a lot of time finding paths and profiles. But one of the good ones that we've done, and was quite easy, was Claxby Top, near the radar ball, to Home Moss, the transmitter, over, just the other side, between Sheffield and Manchester.
Yeah.
And that was, with this sort of gear at the Home Moss end, you could hear it quite easily on this sort of gear at Claxby end. You could hear the audio with no trouble at all. You couldn't get back on one of these. They could detect voice, but they couldn't hear us on one of those. But on one of these, no problem at all. And this, I forgot to show you the other half, that's the receive half. So this in theory, if I clip it onto here, it's all this complicated.
That's a transceiver, is it?
Yeah, this makes it into the transceiver. And this is my receiver on this. So hopefully, once you've had a signal that way, we could maybe hear a signal coming back the other way if I put, got an extension on that one. That's the lights in here. Did you hear the click from the flash?
Yeah.
If you cover it up, you can hear the lights disappear. That's listening to light bulbs. There's a whole new era of shortwave listening happening with these. People are going out and listening to light sources. Yeah, street lights, power station lights, boats. We could hear the wind farm in the sea off Wales. We couldn't see anything else, but we could hear the wind farm, or we could hear the ships as well. You could hear the frequency of the generators. Street lights have a 100 cycle buzz, because they get bright on both halves of the main cycle. So you get 100 hertz hum from a street light usually. We're knowing it's a low energy street light. Some of them use pulse width modulation, and you can hear the tones coming from the street lights. So you can whip round and listen to other things. It's a whole new ball of, hopefully. I don't know if this is going to work. Yeah, I've got a whistle from that. This has got a built-in tone generator if you listen. That's not feedback, it's I'm not sure what this is looking at. Yeah. That's listening to the tone generator off this. Unfortunately, the hum, don't think you'll hear me over the top of the hum. 1, 2, 3, no, you won't. It's not very good.
We'll turn the lights off.
Lights out.
Yeah, if you turn the lights out, you'll hear me.
Come back.
Still getting a hum.
Level 3.
It's, hang on, I'll point it slightly different way. That's it. I'll get rid of the hum and we'll bring the light. Just don't look up. Don't look up while I just get this lined up with that. That's it. That should be enough. No, you're alright. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. G0ATW, again getting feedback. So that one is now transmitting, and the one that side's on the receive now. Plenty of audio, a lot better with the lights out. And that's a test tone. Because if you're listening for a light, so I take the microphone out, that's the noise you get. And as you go off the light, you'll hear the noise level change. So it's a lot better if you're transmitting a tone when you line up. Yeah, put the lights back on now. So yeah, it's useful. One of the other things I fancied doing was a bit on the electronics side. I thought, well, I can make a transmitter even cheaper. Because I had this idea all of a sudden. One night I sat there and go, you know, to make these printed circuit boards and the layout and the surface mount for a transmit receive, fairly complicated. So then I thought, pulse width modulation is the best way to drive a LED. If you don't drive it on all the time, if you pulse it on and off, if you pulse it on and off, you can push more current through because it has time to cool down. And LEDs, they destroy themselves if you drive them on for a long time, hard, they'll get thermal runaway and they'll die. If you turn them off for as long as you turn them on, then they don't. They just sit there and you can put a lot more current through them and make them more, you know, make them brighter. Now suddenly I had a bit of inspiration one night, thought Class D audio amplifiers. Has anyone come across Class D audio? It's the stuff they use in phones and things nowadays. How on earth do you get a 3-watt audio amplifier in there? And a speaker and everything, you think, well, it's clever really, isn't it? And what they've done is they've made audio amplifiers really, really small, and they don't need heat sinks. You get 2 or 3 watts out of them, don't need heat sinks at all. And the way they do it is to use pulse width modulation. They use a bridge of FETs that turn on and off. That's all they ever do. They just turn on and off to give you a square wave output. But the pulse width varies. The on time and the off time varies with your audio. Right, so if it's varying on and off with your audio, and you put it through a low pass filter, it's like recovering an AM signal. Because the time that it's on, it gives out more power than the time it's off, if you like. So when it's off for longer than it's on, it's low power. When it's on for longer than it's off, it's high power. So if you low pass filter that, you get audio back. So audio amplifiers now, instead of using the old-fashioned transistor push-pull audio output stages, which were quite inefficient, they use Class D audio amplifiers and a low-pass filter. That means you can build quite a high-powered audio amplifier in a pinhead, because it doesn't dissipate any heat, it's either on or off. Dissipates no power at all, hardly, so they don't need heat sinks. And this is what they've done to mobile phones. Well, I thought, well, why not drive a leg with one of them? Well, the first thing I looked for was one with legs on it, because I'm not really into loads of surface mount stuff. I like Veraboard. I still love Veraboard. So I found a chip called a TPA 3125D2, and it's a PWM audio chip. And then you throw away half the stuff that goes with it, because they always use low pass filters and all sorts to get the audio back. And I just wanted to drive a lead. That's my circuit that I came up with. All there is a chip and about half a dozen components. The bits down here, you can throw them away as well if you want, and just replace them with a resistor. That's a constant current device, just for limiting the current through the LEDs. You can just put I think I ended up with a 12 ohm resistor instead of those 2 transistors in the end. That's the circuit I ended up with. You can pass that around, there isn't many.
Right.
If anyone fancies a go, you can build that on Veraboard in about half an hour. The chip, again, really expensive. I think it was nearly £2 from Farnell. Yeah. The chip was about £2 from Farnell. And I built one up in a little box.
Oh, sorry.
So I built another transmitter. Right, and this is my pulse width modulated audio transmitter. Right, and all it is, there's a bit of Veraboard in there, and there's a microphone insert on the top. Right, so, and there's a PTT switch. Right, so again, what I can do with this setup is I can take the high powered LED off here, which that just slides off, and we can replace it with my pulse width audio modulated transmitter. If anyone ever wanted help building any of this, helps at hand. We don't live far away.
You can always join.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't join 3 clubs, surely.
Why not?
I suppose I could. I'm a member of the BATC as well. So this one, this one is my posh one, because it's the only one I've got with a PTT switch. So I'll put a switch on this one. Right, now that's a nice focus, isn't it? That's a 3-watt LED. It doesn't look that much different from the 16-watt one, to be honest, and it's pulse width modulated. This can't quite get focus to stay still. Somewhere near there. This one's pulse width modulated, so if I shouted it, it might flickers a bit. hopefully I can demonstrate with my little audio amplifier whatever I did with it. Here it is hanging on that one. So I plugged
So
that
you're
into
really
this.
getting into light waves then, aren't you?
Oh yeah. Right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Doesn't sound as clear as the others. PWM, no low pass filter. All I'm relying on is the low pass filtering. Still getting feedback. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's quite good because you don't usually have transmit and receive on in the same place, but getting the feedback off that. So that's my little invention of my own, which I'm quite pleased with. It worked first time, and I just thought I'd have it off the top of my head one night. And as I say, that's just pulse width modulated LED, about 3 watts. Again, I've used that over a 50-mile path, but I haven't tried it over anything further yet. That's just 3 watts of light. Any more questions?
Yeah, if you say there's a low pass filter in that chip, why weren't you tempted to use that then?
A low pass filter in the chip?
No, it's on it, in the circuitry, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, the
I
low
thought you said
pass
there was one
filter.
I thought you said there was one in the chip itself.
No, it was in the circuitry with the chip.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just a cut down version of the test,
Yeah.
the data sheet. If you put a low pass filter in there, it just gives you straight AM onto the chip. But I thought, well, the PWM is better because I can overdrive the lead. And that lead's now got, I think it should have about, I think it's only rated to have about 500 or 600 milliamps through it, and I've got 1.2 amps going through it. But the interesting thing on that as well is you can't measure the current going through the lead correctly because it's at 300 kilohertz. PWM's at 300 kilohertz. If you put a normal meter in, you only measure about half the current that your meter would be normally measuring, even if you're on AC. So the way to do it is to measure the voltage drop across a series resistor. So I've got a series resistor and I can measure the voltage drop across it with a scope and then calculate from the voltage and the resistance the current through the lead. It's the only way you can actually see what's happening. But it's quite impressive, and I don't think it's that far off being able to work a really long path on that. It's not unduly dimmer than the other one. It's also got a, yeah, this one runs cold. It's quite impressive. This one runs cold, and this one, you'll see it's got 1, 2 heat sinks in a big metal box, and after 10 minutes you can burn your hands on it because that's not efficient though, and that's just a straight AM baseband one. Some of the things they have done at Doncaster now though, they don't really know about this one of mine. What they've done is done subcarriers that they inject into the light. By injecting a subcarrier oscillator into your light, you can make it FM or SSB. They're actually using HF transceivers now with a mixer. So they're putting in top band or 80 metres.
Well, it takes the fun out of it, doesn't it?
And they're having an HF rig sat on it. Yeah, it takes all, it gets expensive. Fittingly, they tend to use HF rigs and use a mixer into the lead. So they're actually using sideband and FM. I still think my PWM signal is going to be better. we haven't managed to prove it yet.
So when are you going next for your next trip then?
Well, I've got a holiday coming up, and after that, Conrad's found another path,
Alright.
which doesn't look as bad.
How far's that open?
Again, it would give us a record because I think it's about 84, 85 miles. But it's from Whernside, if anyone knows. Is anyone familiar with hilltops?
Yeah.
Yeah, this one's from Whernside to Lincolnshire, to the Graspy Top. But it does rely a bit on getting the right weather conditions, because it just clips all the hill tops. But if you get a little bit more refraction, you'll make it. But it's going to be a lot easier than climbing mountains and going to Landowner.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But state of play, it's an easy thing to play with, it costs nothing, you don't even need to be licensed. I hate to say it, but you don't. Most people that use it are, and they're using their own call signs, but it's not a licensed band. You can say, hey, it's me, can you hear me? You know, it's one of those sort of things. It's part of the electromagnetic spectrum. It's just like radio, but it's a bit different. It's a bit of fun, entertaining really, and that's it. Not too complicated.
Where do you get the LEDs and detectors?
The LEDs and detectors, eBay
Oh,
is the best place. The thing is that 3 watt LED, that red LED, it wasn't me who got those. One of the other lads, Lee G0ATW, who plays with us, he bought 50 for £5, I think, off eBay. So, and these lenses, I bought the lenses. There's a lens on the front there that focuses onto the Fresnel screen. It's just pushed in, and there's a holder and a lens. And you buy them, and I bought a bag like this. So if anyone wants any lenses or any holders, I've got that many, I'd never use them.
Are they the dragon bulbs that you use?
Yeah, that's a Dragon one, that's a Dragon.
They're 3 watt, are they?
They're 3 watt, yeah, but I'm driving it at about nearly
Yeah.
6.
Just as an interesting thing, so if you use the 18 watt through PWA,
Yeah, that could be more efficient, but I haven't done that, because the 18 watt one, this thing, that was, the design for that was in Scatterpoint, the microwave, little microwave thing from the microwave group, the publication they do, and it was done as a baseband device. There's not much to it. There's a DC to DC converter, there's a little mic preamp, and there's a FET that's bolted onto that heatsink that takes the voltage away from the LED. It's just a series of resistor really with a LED. And that was published in Scatterpoint, so I just copied it to get us on the air. The the big LED in there, Lee bought them. They were dear. They were about £10 each, I think, off somewhere from America.
London now.
You got pictures of it? Yeah. So they were about £10 each, those. I don't really think you need it, to be honest, because I think that's probably got enough power to do as long a line of sight as you're going to do. But that, possibly, if you really want to go for high power, that's the thing to do. Spend £10 and get some heat sinks. There's little blocks of heat sinks cut off all sorts.
is there anyone bouncing them off clouds?
Yeah. Yeah, there's someone doing
Along the
forward
cloud.
scatter as well. That's interesting. I lit a cloud up with that the other night. I took it out of my shack to test it before Conrad climbed the mountain. And I thought I'll put it on, switched it on. I pointed it up and I was focusing. And I thought, yeah, pink clouds. One of the other strange things was I was testing this one night, and it was a misty night. And it's this PWM thing. It looks really weird in the mist. It looked as if there was a meteorite in the sky and it had a fluffy tail, and as I moved the focus forwards and backwards it moved about in the sky. So yeah, neighbours look at you strange when you're doing these
With
things.
a red light on, John.
Oh yeah, but, you never believe it. You can, I lead focus one of those on someone's chimney pot and it looked like the chimney was on fire. You can see them for miles. It really does look strange.
You get them silly people there saying there's a UFO about.
Oh yeah, I mean that really did look strange when I was doing that. I don't know if I've got video footage on my phone. I'll have a look in a minute when I have my beer. But it looked really weird in the night sky. It just looked like a meteorite going backwards and forwards with its tail on it. It just had the shack done. But yeah, it's just a bit of fun. It's something different. I like building things. I mean, the woodwork's really complicated. It looked even worse, but I polished it. I went mad one night and found a tin of polish, and I thought I'd give it a coat of that. It looks a bit more professional.
Taking you away soon, John.
Yeah, I know.
John,
Yeah.
has anybody taken forward the military research on lasers and carried on with that?
Yeah, there are people that are doing it.
Because the military jacked it in, didn't they?
Yeah. Oh well, they say they did, but I do know someone who used to work on it, and they used to have missiles following it and things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know a few people who used to work on it, and they said they packed it up. But I don't really know. One of the major problems with lasers is scintillation. They just move around all over the place, and you just can't hold it in as, bolt it down as steady as you like. You can't see the other end for long.
Did I not read something about lasers Because when you use a laser, if you're using it for measuring or cutting or whatever, you know, it's basically the fixed frequency that the laser's designed for.
Yeah.
And isn't there an efficiency problem when you try to modulate the laser and vary the frequency through it?
No. No, because they use lasers down fibre optics to send signals massive wide frequencies.
Hmm.
It's even huge wide bandwidth signals down fibre optics using lasers.
Yeah, but that's only really small power, isn't it?
Well, you don't need a lot of power with lasers. I mean,
I'm just trying to
fibre
think
optics nowadays, you're shoving milliwatts down, and some of the single mode stuff now that goes across the Atlantic, you're shoving milliwatt lasers into it, and that's a lot of power on a laser. You know, I mean, if you start looking at them, it's blinding. That's one of the other things. This is bright, and it can hurt your eyes. It can make you feel, you know, twitch and move out of the way, and you think, God, that was bright. But lasers, they can cause damage. I mean,
Yeah, you don't get a second chance, do
you don't get a second chance. This is safe, really. Make you blink, and it's quite bright. But lasers, again, that's the other problem. They can be dangerous. The police can see you with lasers, can't they, Jay? If you're shining a laser.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
we were out testing this one night, and Jason was trying to pinpoint the other end, so he had me a laser pointer, a green laser pointer, and was going across, and then the next thing you see is some blue flashing lights.
Heading our direction, so we turned everything off quick. And
It was it all off. Yeah. When you get these sort of gear out at the side of the road, you know, and you're pointing somewhere, people don't have to give you some strange looks. Especially if they ask you what you're doing and you try and explain.
Do they suddenly slow down on going back?
Oh, they do if they're in cars, yeah. Well, there was this tale, and I don't know if it's true, but Finningley Club outside, there's a long straight road. And they were out down there testing some of the red light transmitters. And then I looked round and there was some cars stopped down the road.
Traffic light.
Yeah, I think it was all stopped down the road because they were transmitting a red light down the road and it was all stopped. So until they turned it off, they didn't get a lot of traffic past the club. Sad to say that they've had a couple of burglaries lately, that wasn't so good. They had a car stolen from outside there the other week as well.
Really?
Did you know about that?
Well, they've had a car, the lawnmower, a generator,
that's right, yeah.
loads of stuff. It's
Yeah, I went down a couple of weeks ago, put some cables in for cameras there. Put some CCTV gear in. But yeah, it's not only this I get involved in. I do like the amateur television, and I do tend to go all over the bands and things. It's just another band to me and another bit of fun. I got set up on all sorts of things, but this is fun. It's just cheap.
just cheap fun, isn't it?
Costs nothing. You can play around. It doesn't matter if you try and build something. It don't work. It don't matter. Does it? If it costs you a fiver, you can throw it in the bin, can't you? It don't work right. You can spend hours of fun making things.
And the tube is RXTX as well, John, isn't it?
Yeah, oh yeah, the tube. Yeah, well, you did hear this receiving and transmitting. This one, they've come up with a novel way of changing from transmit to receive. I haven't got it operating on this, but it's actually designed as a little tilt switch on the bottom. And because the focal point of these two, the transmit lead and the receive lead, is 90 degrees out from each other, they could make it go from transmit to receive by turning it round upside down. You turn it that way, it's receive. You turn it that way, it's transmit.
Yeah.
But mine isn't working because I've disabled the tilt switch. So I just do it manually now, just focus of how I want it on it. But yeah, that was a nice novel part of the design. You go on receive by having it one way up, twist it round, bring the other lead into the focal point, and it'd be on receive. Quite a cute idea. But there's all these daft ideas of doing things. Also, it breaks up nicely for, for taking to pieces.
Well, it's all spare bits, weren't it?
Well, it's all spare
the
bits.
connections
Yeah,
were
pass that round, have a look at that as well.
well, what they found in the box, weren't they?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
switches on them, there's loads of the bits.
But he's actually run out of kits at the moment, but he's talking about building some more kits up.
We had a couple left when we went to rally, didn't we, Jason?
Yeah.
The other day, you had a couple left on the table.
Mm.
You must have sold them.
Right. Well,
Have you
That's it, really.
Oh, just one thing.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about, you know, these light tubes you get
Yeah.
for you have them in buildings to bring light from the roof down?
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about them?
I have, but I've never had one to play with him. Yeah, I know what you mean, because you can get light tubes from all sorts of kit nowadays that the leads are on a board and then the lights come out the front and you just guide it through, don't they, the light tubes. But,
no, that's...
but it's similar.
Well, it is similar.
But they have light tubes from buildings, yeah.
Well, it's just an open tube that's very highly mirrored.
Yeah.
You know, on the inside.
Yeah. Yeah, I know the sort of thing you mean. Yeah. But, yeah, it's getting an older one to play with, isn't it?
Yeah.
Masking nicely, he's a Scotsman, he knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a really big lens and a camera at home, because I did fancy putting a video camera and a long lens on it, because black and white video cameras, the old ones, not the colour modern ones, but the old black and white ones, are very good for infrared and red. They're quite receptive to red light. So I quite fancied putting one of those, maybe bolt it onto the top of here, just to see if I could if I could see the light at the other end and focus that through a camera, just to have a play to see what you could see. It's a very shame Lee's got some gear as well. He's got a telescope bolted to his. It's got a spotoscope, so you can just look down it and sight up the other end. But I just look down the top of my bit of wood. You look through the little gap there and point that to it, and it's perfect. No real problem.
I bought a couple of telescopic sights off a guy that was going to do it with lasers.
Yeah.
And he didn't progress it, and he got a couple of very good quality rifle scopes.
Yeah, that's ideal if you want to help you line up.
Oh, they are.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah. So, no, if anyone else wants a hand building anything or any information, or if they want someone to go to the other end when you've built something to see if you can work them, just contact us. There's a few of us in Grimsby now. There's another lad, Adrian, G7BRB, is that
G1.
The G1BRB. He's quite often on Lincoln repeater as well. He's got a tube. He was out at Land Unknown as well, looking at the mist. Yeah. But, yeah, it's a good bit of fun.
I've got the boards from the PW articles.
Yeah.
Copies, but I've yet to populate the boards.
Oh, right, yeah. Yeah, it was the lad, one of the lads at Doncaster did that, didn't he? Wrote the article for the BW thing.
Yeah, because there's AM and FM.
Yeah, he's put a subcarrier on for FM, hasn't he? Yeah. The FM's quite good because it does get away, you do get away from the hum a lot. You can get rid of the hum from the light, but the one problem you still do get from the lights is the swamp they receive. Even though you don't get hum from them, if you've got a lot of lights on, you don't receive anything because it's swamping the gain at the front end of the receiver. So, although you get rid of the hum, you can still get problems with lights.
Well, that's useful to know. Thank you.
Yeah, you when you get playing, you'll find that out. Yeah, it's good. Right.
Any more questions?
No, it's good. This I've enjoyed it. Right.
So I've just got another question. You know the hum from the lights and stuff. Have you tried fitting a red filter on the front to cut that down? Did that make a difference? Or?
It does, yeah. That's one of the things I've done a lot lately because someone actually managed a 7-mile daytime path last week. No, it's 12-mile daytime pass. And the only way they could do it was by putting red filters on. But it gets rid of so much of the rest of the light.
I know that if you're sure of the wavelength that you're operating at, I know that Lee can provide a pretty accurate filter.
Oh, right.
Lee filters.
Lee filters.
Can provide something that's kind of pretty spot on.
Yeah. Because it's not only red that people play with as well, because there is a record for ultraviolet as well that's gone mad and doing a bit of ultraviolet work. That's a little bit more dangerous. That can heat these things up, but there's a record, it's a lot shorter, so you don't need so much line of sight path. I think it's about 20 kilometres, so that's an easier one to break because it's not so far.
Yeah, the trouble is with ultraviolet though, you've got to watch what you're doing with it. The trouble is you don't know who's in the way.
No,
that's the thing.
Oh, one of the big things they were querying about was aircraft and things, when you're shining bright lights across. But once you get a mile or two away, as long as the aircraft isn't close to you with these, you're pretty safe because it just looks like a red light. It's nothing special, it's just a red light. If you're doing it with lasers, then it is something, then you get sent to prison. Someone recently did in Grimsby, playing with the helicopter. With one of them green laser pens, sent him to prison.
Upset about that, don't they?
They do, yeah, he's in prison. That's upsetting enough, isn't it? But with this, as long as you're not directly pointing at an aircraft, and you know, you're fairly safe. We did do a path from, or where is it? This was from Caister Top to Summersby Top. You know those ends. And unfortunately that does go across the flight path of Kermington, of course. So we were working each other, then a plane took off, so we went quiet.